If you're taking a stab this early at NFL season totals, first of all, good on you, and we should kick it sometime. You're my kind of guy or gal. Second of all, I think that what you have to do, and this is going to seem pretty elementary, but this is what you got to do. See how many NFC teams are on the team schedule that you're thinking about betting. Because if we're being honest with ourselves, it starts with the quarterbacks, and then ultimately it works our way up to the entire football team. But if we're starting to list the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL, right? If we're going, all right, Patrick Mahomes, and I like Joe Burrow, and I like this guy and that guy, we're going to have Jalen Hurts, certainly in that top 5, top 6. All the other guys are pretty much coming from the AFC, man, which tells me that all those teams, if we're talking about, I don't know, 5 of the 6 best teams, 6 of the 7 best teams, I think we're talking about Kansas City. I think we're talking about Buffalo. I think we're talking about Cincinnati. I think we're talking about Baltimore. Man, I think that most of them come from the AFC the same way that that's been the power conference the last couple of years. So if you look at a team schedule and you go, oh, crap, they got to play all those teams from the AFC, especially if they're stacked up, I run from it. But if I look and I go, all right, they got the Bears, they got the Saints, they got the Cowboys, they got the Bucks, I think I'm laying down a little bit of money. So it's pretty easy if you're going to bet the futures. How many NFC teams does this team play? And if the answer's a lot, bet on them.
Yeah, and not only that, and that's a good point you bring up that they're an NFC team, and their schedule on paper is the most difficult, but a lot of their tough games are going to be at home. Kansas City is really the one tough one that's on the road, but obviously the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, they're going to be at home. They play each of those teams twice, but the Bills are going to be at home. The Niners are going to be at home. The Dolphins are going to be at home. The Vikings are going to be at home. So all those teams that made the playoffs last year, the Eagles, 6 of their 8 games against playoff teams from last season are going to be at home. And they were so tough at the Link last year. They only lost 2 games. They only lost 1 game with Hurts as quarterback at home. The other one was Gardner Minshew against the Saints. But, yeah, I'm with you, Sean. You know, there's something like if a team has the toughest schedule and they play in the AFC and a bunch of those games are on the road, like that's one thing. But you combine the fact that the Eagles were so good last season, they might arguably be even better this year. A lot of their tough games are at home, and they play in the NFC. I don't think that I would really be interested in taking their under, even if there is some good plus money value on that.
But Phoenix has been a relatively bad road team over the course of the entire season. Denver has that home court advantage that's particularly interesting because of the altitude, right? And you have these old heads, you got Kevin Durant playing a ton of minutes, and, they are already thin. And Devin Booker's even playing a ton of minutes. He's younger, obviously, but they're playing like uppers of 40 minutes. They're playing almost as many minutes as they can possibly play. Now they have a quick turnaround, have to go play at altitude. I think this is a tough ask for Phoenix right here, especially without Chris Paul. And I think that Denver is able to take care of business at home. It's one of the better home court advantages in the NBA. To me, it's Jokic because of what he's matched up against. DeAndre Ayton's basically getting played out of the rotation with the way Monty Williams is handling this. And you're seeing a lot of Jock Landon, which is just not a recipe for success in the interior. We've seen in the past couple of games, even though, Denver's dropped 2 in a row, Jokic is putting up they're literally video game numbers, what he's doing right now. And the pick and roll with him and Jamal Murray has been absolutely unstoppable. And Phoenix doesn't have an answer for that. There is absolutely no answer for that. Whereas with Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, they're shooting so well. Like, it's tough to say I'm not confident in them, right? But there should be a little bit of regression to the mean because you have Aaron Gordon, you have KCP, you have relatively good defenders that you can throw at them. All they need is a bad shooting night, and they're just not necessarily getting the volume up. But Jokic, there just is no answer for him on the interior, in my opinion.
Let's stay out west and move on to that Warriors series, or shall I say that Lakers series. Right now on BetMGM, the favorite to come out of the West, outside of Boston, the favorite to win the championship. So depending, on what ends up happening by the end of the night, who knows? The Lakers might be at BetMGM's favorite to end up winning the championship. Are you a believer in the Los Angeles Lakers?
Dude, I like the Lakers a lot. I was on them in the series, and part of it, and a lot of it really has to do with Anthony Davis looks awesome, right? So we saw that alternating pattern where he just was having a good game, then a bad game, good game, bad game. Finally had another good game in a row. But the biggest thing is that the defensive flexibility that he has is so important, right? And that's going to be a problem. It's a tough matchup if Denver gets through. If Phoenix gets through, they definitely don't have an answer for Anthony Davis, right? Like DeAndre Ayton, I don't think can cover him at all of the levels that he can play. And then in the Eastern Conference, I'm not super confident that Philly is going to get through, right? So you're looking at a Boston team that has weird bigs, but Anthony Davis could still realistically be the best player on the floor in any series moving forward. I think maybe it's definitely closer with Jokic in my opinion, just because of how good he is at every facet of the game. But the Lakers have a lot of contributions across the board.
Well, I think the best answer to that is you're not limited to only one bet, right? I mean, take stabs at multiple teams. The best argument for the Chiefs is that you're not going to get a better number for the Chiefs 6 months from now than you can get it now. So if you feel like a repeat is really on the table, you get it now. You have hedge opportunities later because you've already got the Chiefs at a way better number than they'll be available for in Week 13. But absolutely line up some other long shots that you like too at 28-1 or 66-1 or whatever you can find that you feel like there's a real path for.
Bigger picture, PJ, it's also a chance for Joel Embiid to go from being the best player in the league and the MVP and the back-to-back leading scorer to being an all-time great. Because I don't know if you can really be an all-time great if you don't win a championship. No disrespect to Charles Barkley or Karl Malone, but we know that they're not on that Mount Rushmore. They might be on that next set of statues, but at some point you have to win a championship, and no matter what you do to prove your greatness. And I was saying earlier to you that it's either Jokic or Embiid if we're starting to list the best players, the most accomplished players in the NBA that don't have a championship. The second half of this game that's going on right now, and then if Philly can somehow pull off one more win, you tell me, it feels like this is Embiid's shot, right? He's been injured basically his entire career. He had to miss that entire first season. Since we heard about the process, it's been Ben Simmons, it's been Markelle Fultz, it's been this guy and that guy, and it's been all kinds of coaching changes. The second half of this game and the rest of the season, this feels like a real shot for Joel Embiid to change the overall way that people look at him and his entire career. Not just this season, but if he's able to win a championship this year and it feels like this is his shot, Embiid all of a sudden becomes an all-time great.
Paolo, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren. Real quick, just give me your thoughts on Paolo at 1. He won Rookie of the Year. He was the number 1 pick. I won't ask you if he should be number 1 because he's going to be number 1 on anybody's list, but just how good do you think Paolo can be? Like, do you think he has NBA MVP future good in his future, or do you think he can just be a really solid, all-star, maybe get 6-7 years? Like, what do you kind of project Paolo's future being?
Well, for the record, I didn't even think he was going to end up being the actual number 1 overall pick. I thought maybe that was going to be Chet Holmgren before we knew about the injury news, but ultimately it ended up being Paolo Banchero. 20 points per game, 7 rebounds, almost 4 dimes. Like, those are great numbers, and you're playing for an Orlando team that is severely undermanned. So I do think that he can be really, really good. Can he be good enough to overcome the curse of playing for the Magic? Can he somehow get that team hovering around 500 and then maybe be in the playoffs next couple of years while he's still under contract? I don't know, man. That team has a whole lot of work. But when it comes to the talk about Chet Holmgren, I agree. Yeah, we didn't see him this year, but, bro, the Oklahoma City Thunder are about to be a problem. Look at that team.
They're coming.
When he comes back healthy, now you've got a unicorn, a 7-footer that can basically do anything on the court. You've got Josh Giddey, another, 6'7", 6'8", who basically can play 2 or 3 different positions. Oh, by the way, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, even though everybody knows who he is now, is still by far the most underrated player in the NBA. Like, as much credit as people want to give John Morant and talk about him, I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is every bit as good, maybe even a little bit better. Maybe even he has a little bit more offensive shimmy to his game. So I think the Thunder over the next couple of years, like if you ask me what team, what stock I want to put my money into, I think it's Oklahoma City.